Text appears saying Chrissy Bisdup presents Welcome to Brown Bags TV. Background is a woman typing into computer keyboard and changes to two people scribbling notes. Then the text now reads, It's better that we know. Then background changes to the photo of a woman in a table and with a fan and says, Your brown bag sessions are now virtual. Like, share, and subscribe.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm back with our HR series, and this month it's a love month, so belated Happy Valentines to everyone. Uh, Today I have a very esteemed guest, but before that, let me walk you through with what we're going to talk about today, and it's going to be about employees again, and about their work, about work from home, about work anxiety, etc., and another phenomenon that's happening around the world. So stay tuned because you'll know more about that later as we go along with the discussion with my special guest. So, again, belated Happy Valentine's, everyone. So, our episode was entitled Do I Love You Still or Do I Still Love You? Why? Are we talking about someone? Of course not. We're talking about jobs and the job that you do. Do you still love your job? It's a question that I'd like you to answer at the end of this episode. And before anything else, again, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Without further ado, I'll call my friend now. Hi, Emmy.
Hello, Chrissy. How are you doing?
I'm good.
I'm doing good as well. Very nice.
How's the weather there?
Oh, it's doing great. We're right at the end of winter, so
Is it still cold?
it is cold, but it is now fluctuating. So the other day we had like 0 degrees, a bit past negative,
Oh.
but now I think it's 10 degrees. Very Baguio feels.
Baguio
let's just
feels.
say.
And
Yeah.
can you still feel the sun?
Oh
It's
yeah.
still
So we had It is cold. A lot of the days are starting to get gloomier, but this weekend we had a great sunny weekend. So it was great. We went outside, enjoyed the sun.
So hello to Jay, your brother. Hi.
Yes, I'll say hi
Hi.
for him.
Yeah.
That's
Belated
right.
Happy Valentine's. I know.
Absolutely. For
Yeah.
everyone. And again, I think this
everyone.
is a very timely topic. Just,
Yeah.
checking out, do we still,
Love our
love our jobs?
Yeah.
Very
'Cause-
timely.
Because here at HR Series, we talk about employment, employees, about work,
Absolutely.
about jobs, how to prepare for job. But now it seems like, people are exiting the jobs, and
Right.
it's a question that people often ask: Do I still love you? But not.
Right.
I mean, you can always ask that question, not just to a person,
Absolutely.
to the job that you do. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll give you before rather we talk about the topic for today. Ellie is one of my closest friends in our master studies. We were classmates at DLSU at De La
Yep.
Salle University, and we also studied together in Australia. So we
Yeah.
also studied in the University of Newcastle.
That's right. Oh my God, like
Yeah.
very memorable. I can't believe it's been that long and now we're
Yeah.
here.
And
Zooming our way.
yeah, and we've been working together as professionals, no longer classmates.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In each of our respective fields. So, just for context, in case your viewers are asking why is there winter, why is it cold? So, I am right now based in Vancouver, here in Canada. So I am working for the provincial government as a change advisor, which is basically my role is specialized towards helping my organization with digital transformation. It's such a buzzword, but basically I'm helping our organization with remote work technology, upgrading the IT software, better engaging people so that we can collaborate and work together. So lots of good stuff. So all of this is something that we're working towards during the time of the pandemic. So I've been in Canada 2022 height of the pandemic and still ongoing with my work.
Yeah. And just another info that I'd like to share with you guys is we also work together in two of the projects here in the Philippines. So
Yes.
we are not just simply HR professionals here, but we also do OD or organizational development. So we both work as a
Yes.
consultants for a big government agency,
That's right.
and it has something to do with disability inclusion in the workforce. So again, it's HR, it's employment, but there's a twist because it has something to do with disability inclusion and
That's
diversity and
right.
inclusion. So we're very happy to share with you that these are the type of work that we do. But work that has something to do with social social stuff, or it's
Yeah.
development work, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And I'm very
All
happy
right.
to know that you also landed in a change management or OD type of work in Canada.
Yes, exactly. Me as well. It's such a huge challenge, but at the same time, it's also a privilege being able to help.
I
And at
know.
the same time, I also help our kababayan, so I also volunteer. In a volunteer
In Filipino
capacity, I help.
organizations.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
helping Filipinos, sometimes in tandem with the Philippine consulate as well. Helping with
With
during the pandemic, job support,
oh yeah, job
and
support.
providing
Because many
guidance.
lost their jobs actually.
Exactly, which is very relevant because that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, that's right. So again, another reminder, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget
Please.
to,
Yeah.
to click the notification bell so you'd be updated
Yes.
whenever there's a new episode. Okay, going back.
Yeah.
Uh Before we moved on to our real discussion, I'd like to know,
Yeah.
um, have you ever resigned in any job that you had in the past, or was it
Yeah.
always just your contract ended?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, that's a very relevant question.
Mm-hmm.
I've been more than a decade in in our career here in HR, and I
Mm-hmm.
guess I can recall one specific instance that was
Mm-hmm.
very, um, let's just say, very memorable to me.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
I
hope
was
it's positively memorable with a
Well, it is
question
a
mark.
resignation.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just premising right off the bat. So, well, to be fair, it was at the start of my career, but basically what happened was, I was this go-getter when I was starting out. I, really wanted to impress my boss, really wanted to impress my clients. I was working in management consultancy. But what I did notice that it was a bit of a burnout. Like I was working extended hours, doing my best to, try and get the job done, or, extending until such a point when I realized I I'm getting so tired. Like and I've reached a point of no return. So I just handed it to my boss. My boss was like, "Don't do it. What can we do?" My boss made an attempt at a stay interview just to ask, "Okay, what do we get? What can we do to keep you?" But at that point I was like, "I'm very sorry. It's nothing personal. It's just that I feel I've reached my limit and I feel that I want to breathe and just take a shift in career." So I had to resign from that work. That was, I think, my first instance of resigning from work due to burnout, as I've later found out that I was experiencing burnout. What
So,
about yourself, Chris? Yeah,
so burnout is the term.
yeah, burnout is
Burnout.
really
I guess I could relate to that because 11 years ago when I worked with this international multinational company, it's very heavy on recruitment and talent acquisition because I worked there as part of HR specifically for talent acquisition. And
yeah,
um so we have to hire like by the hundreds. And that
right.
was, yeah, like what I mentioned earlier, it's a heavy requirement that you have to fulfill or you have to accomplish each month for different
Yeah.
clients. It's a BPO company, if you're wondering,
Hmm.
business process outsourcing. And
Oh yeah, that is tough, especially if you have a ramp,
really,
right?
really, when we're ramping up, OMG, it's like that would kill you because you can't sleep because you have to stay in the office for a few more hours after
Yeah,
your official work hours. And during that time, we weren't working from home. It wasn't
right,
really it wasn't really a
right.
thing yet it wasn't really a thing yet back then, and you're
Right.
also problematic with the traffic.
That's right. I mean,
With the traffic
sometimes
jam
people
every day.
underestimate Manila traffic commute. Is it still that bad
I'm not so sure
nowadays?
right now. No, I'm not really sure nowadays because I usually stay at home
Oh,
because of the
that's
pandemic.
right. And a lot
But
of people are staying at home, but you're right.
maybe it's not as bad as before, like 11
Right.
years ago. But
Right.
the thing is, because I always lacked sleep, and
Right.
I kept on doing the same thing over and over again, and it's something that um probably led me to burnout. And apart from that, my
Yeah.
boss was also a problem. When I moved
Ooh.
to another role, luckily
Yeah.
I was able to move to a higher role after my stint as a recruitment officer. When I
Hmm.
moved to another role, which is talent acquisition strategist, my boss was a problem because I don't know. He doesn't seem to understand things. Like
What do
he
you mean?
doesn't. I mean, he doesn't appreciate his staff, his
Mm.
people. I'm one of
Oh,
those actually.
right.
I mean, we have a heavy requirement all the time. We are pressured to fulfill
Right.
the demands of our American and Australian clients, and we
Yeah.
have to make sure that we are able to deliver at the end of the month. And the learning curve when you're new to a job or when you just
Yeah.
recently moved into another position, that would,
Right.
you still have a learning curve where you try to cope up with new things and new processes, new reports and everything. So I guess that was the main reason why I left. Burnout and feeling
Yeah.
unappreciated. I mean, well, the pay is always an issue. Mostly it's our issue. We have to be realistic.
Right.
Pay is always um, something that we always look for whenever there's a greener pasture, or if we've been thinking of greener pasture.
Right.
Pay is always a consideration. In fact, a primary consideration. But for me, during the time, even if the pay wasn't really that good, um, it's more than that. I guess it's more
Right.
of burnout, being feeding the feeling of not being appreciated, and yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I guess these experience is something not new in pandemic, because there are a lot of people who resign or wanting to resign from their jobs. In fact, there's such a thing as great resignation phenomenon.
Ooh.
This is what I was telling you earlier, that this is a phenomenon that's happening around the world, and Philippines is not an exemption.
Right.
Perhaps in the Philippines it's not known as such. Probably most of our fellow HRs may not
Mm.
know that it is the label, but it's
Right.
happening here. And
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of
So,
resignation
so
happening.
So if I may ask, so the term hasn't yet appeared, let's say, in Philippine media, because I can share very quickly, Chrissy. So right now here in Canada, because we share a very close border with the States, it is a term that has gone around. In fact, even in the professional circles that I've been attending, it is something that's been discussed. So I'm very curious to know what our kababayans think about it. Do they think it's real? Is it
I guess
because
they know. I guess
right,
they know, and they can feel that it's happening here in the Philippines, but it's more on, not all of them know that it's the label, Great
right,
Resignation phenomenon, because one of the leading HR experts here in the Philippines was interviewed by Yahoo
yeah,
Philippines,
yeah,
and he confirmed that it's happening here in the Philippines. So it's
right,
happening around the world because of the
yeah,
pandemic, and
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I guess it makes sense when you think about it. I mean, it can't just be a North American phenomenon when everyone was hit
no,
by the pandemic.
yeah, and the
That's right.
epicenter is actually in the U.S.
That's right. Yeah,
but
yeah,
but we cannot, it's undeniably happening around the world, and can you just imagine how can those unemployed employees get help, or I don't know, financial support or any type of support while they are unemployed? And you know,
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
jealous because in your country and in other countries like America and Australia, they have um how they call
Yeah, no,
that,
well, social protections,
social
right? There's
protection.
social
And
protections in case you. So here in Canada, um, there is support provided by the
mhm,
government, and in case you get unemployed, especially if it's COVID related, well, you do get assistance.
mhm,
And even then, it's not, number one, it's not going to be a catch-all. Number two, it isn't a guarantee that, you're good to go.
mhm, mhm,
There's other aspects to it, not just, again, to your point, it's not just about the financials. I mean,
mhm,
literally, I know colleagues even in HR who came from the hospitality or tourism industry,
mhm,
who, even though they are given subsidy because they got unemployed, they aren't engaged in anything meaningful. They have to sit at home
mm,
waiting for their industry to resurface. And the way the pandemic is going, it's not just about the money. It's
mm,
also about, I'm not doing anything meaningful. I have not, I'm not developing professionally. There's no growth. So there are factors like that happening even
that's
here in Canada.
and that's psychologically dangerous because
Exactly. I mean,
if you know, sometimes when you're just sitting there and doing nothing and
absolutely.
pressured to do something but you cannot do anything about it,
Exactly.
that's so
It's a
much
bit of a
stress.
challenge.
Especially,
Exactly.
yeah, especially when you are a family man, or
That's
when you're
right.
a mother or a single mom,
Oh,
or
for sure. It just compounds the stress.
exactly.
And, how do you cope with it? There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of pressure. The market is a bit unstable with regard to, which
Mhm.
jobs can I still apply for? Certain industries are not as viable. And if you built your entire career, in one industry,
It's
you're
hard to
forced
shift
to
or
making a
make a shift.
decision. Exactly. How do you
Yeah,
shift? Where do you go moving forward? Are things that I'm
exactly.
sure are not limited to North America. I'm sure even our kababayans back in the Philippines are also thinking about that.
Definitely, definitely. Because when pandemic hit the Philippines,
Yeah,
those who lost their jobs are actually thinking where should they start again. And
right.
some of them started a business. Food business is very, very good. It's doing well here, especially the online food
Mm,
deliveries.
right.
It's doing well, but that's good for those who know how to cook.
That's
You
right.
know, they can easily shift to another industry from where they
Yeah.
came from. But for those who, let's say, like concentrated, or their skills are focused on a certain thing, that is really, really hard for them to
Yeah.
jump into another opportunity, even if they want to, even if they're very willing.
Oh, for
That's,
sure.
yeah, that's really really stressful.
Right. I mean, we've heard a lot of anecdotes, right? Let's
Mm,
say coming from the airline industry, which had
yes.
to, either lay off, let go, or
and
put
they
people in
and they
reserve,
did
right?
let go. They
Yeah,
did
they
let
did
go
let go, and it's
hundreds.
quite understandable. And it's not country specific. Like every country, like the cruise ship industry, which a
Yes.
lot of our kababayans are also, engaged in as
Mm-hmm.
OFWs.
Mm-hmm.
Where will they go? And I know there are some stories, where, some of them went on to your point, develop a product, sell us,
Mm-hmm.
sell
Sell something.
pastries, or
Yeah.
do online marketing, but not everyone has the luxury, or the willingness, to even do that, because it's not an easy shift. It's very easy to say, oh, just change career. That's easier said than done.
Done. Yes.
If you've really built the years to refining your craft, and then suddenly come
You have to
2020
shift.
you're just being told, no, you can't do that anymore. And that is stressful. It's valid to think that they are struggling,
Yeah.
no doubt about it.
Yeah. So everyone is really facing a big challenge right now, especially those who have
Yes.
lost their jobs. And
Right.
that is your great resignation, because
Yeah.
people are resigning from their jobs not because of, well, primarily it's because of economic reasons and
Yeah.
loss of profit, so the organization or the company needs to close down. So
Yeah.
but we would like to emphasize that the great resignation phenomenon is not about just because of company closures, because
Yeah.
there was loss of
Absolutely.
profit, but it has something to do with the mental health, stress, and the psychological impact of the work they do. So
Yeah.
it's something that is serious. People sometimes do not take it seriously, but I
Yeah.
and I guess you also, Ellie,
Yeah.
agree that when there are psychological factors impacting the productivity or the well-being of an employee, that is a serious matter.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I think when it comes to the great resignation, it's very easy to assume that we're being alarmist about it. Why are we even talking about this? People are not resigning. But I'd like to point everyone's attention, especially our listeners, as a change professional, of how the bigger the change, the harder the adjustment. The pandemic, I don't think anyone will dispute, the pandemic is probably one of the biggest changes that happened in recent memory. Like we're forced to rethink everything. So you can just imagine that a shift or a change like that is going to be changing the work landscape. And part of this is both on the employee and employer side, there will be employers unwilling to change. There will be employees unwilling to change. If those demands and those needs are not met, there will either be layoffs or there will be resignations. It's just the truth of the matter, regardless of the context that we
And
are in.
and if you remember when we did our OD projects, the org development
Yeah,
projects, the
yeah.
change management projects we did in the past,
Hmm.
it wasn't pandemic back then,
Exactly.
but still the change that we need to do is somewhat similar to what you're saying right now. That it's
Right,
quite really it's quite hard to implement
right.
change. And
And
when
even then, there was attrition risk. Can you imagine
yes,
now with the pandemic?
yeah, there's attrition risk. And actually now you can't imagine how long does an employee would stay in a job or in your
Oh, for
company,
sure.
because
Yeah,
they might leave after 2 or 3 months, or probably a week or two.
yeah, yeah.
Why? And why do you think employees leave? Like, any thoughts on the employer
Yeah,
side?
on the employer or
Employer side, like, how can they
right.
keep their employees engaged and make sure that the attrition risk will be mitigated?
Okay, so I think let's go first with the with what could be the reasons. I think one of the major reasons on the employer end is an employer's unwillingness to change. So I know that when this pandemic started, particularly because not a lot of literature was available, this isn't just about developing a vaccine. This is also about all industries, HR included, coming to terms with it, trying to grasp it. And when it started, like
Many were
everyone was
caught
just
off guard.
reacting. Exactly. And our
There were
industry
there
is
were
no exception.
yeah, there were no business continuity plans.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
this isn't something you plan for,
For
years in advance, even
years
though
in
you have to,
advance. Yeah,
right? Because
even
it was,
schools, no learning
yeah,
continuity plans. Yes.
exactly. So to that point, everyone did what they thought was best. Let's put it that way. And as an employer, they, different employers did what they think, they would do to make their business survive. It just makes sense to be doing that. However, because there's no, literature to, guide employers, each approach was different. So to answer your question, there are winners and losers in this entire discussion. I think the losers on the employer end are those who think that they can pretend it's business as usual. And there are more than we care to admit it, there are employers who are like, no, this pandemic will end in a few months. It's gonna be fine. Keep reporting to work. No, there's, I don't care if there's no vaccine. They didn't say it like that, but they're like, everything's gonna be fine. Just wear a mask, come to work. I think those businesses have the benefit of hindsight now that they stand to to lose employees as a result of adopting that mindset. Because they did not adjust when the entire market and the entire working environment shifted. If you don't want to change, then change is gonna force the decision on you. I think that's just the way it is.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, the winners, I wouldn't say the winners, but the ones who are able to at least
or
engage
probably
their
we can
employees.
say that the surviving ones.
Yeah, the survivors, let's just put it at that,
The
are the
survivors.
ones who had to pivot very quickly and make a decision to listen to their employees and their emerging needs. What do I mean by that? They're the ones who are like, okay, I know this is shifting. I know we need to do this because we have additional protocols. Retail, for example, I know you have to deal with, stressed out clients, probably anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers. If the organization listened to their employees,
Anti-maskers.
yeah, I mean, I'm speaking
such
from
a
a North
thing
American context, where they go. So us being on the retail side of the government, when there is, sometimes there would be people coming to stores not wanting to put on their mask. You as a staff, what do? These are invisible stressors when you're talking about management up at your main office. You don't get to see this. And you can insist on being like, then talk to them, just tell them there's a policy. It's easy to be driving that, but the survivors are employers who listen to their employees. What's happening? Talk to me. What's stressing you out? Let's see what we can do about this. Opening that dialogue, in my opinion.
This is more
really
on
changes.
open door policy.
Exactly, having that open door.
Door policy where you can
Yeah.
talk to your boss right away and
Exactly.
talk to him over lunch or coffee. And
Yeah.
yes, another thing is this is the consultation you were telling us earlier. It's something
Yeah.
that we also advise when we
Yeah.
did the OD projects or the change management projects here in the Philippines with an agency, because
Right.
since we're pushing for more diverse employees and pushing for more diversity and inclusion programs in
Yeah.
the local government, I guess it's very important that the change is more collaborative, and
Exactly.
they need to consult the people that will be directly impacted by the
Yeah.
change. For example, the persons with disabilities. This has been an issue, like a very big issue when it comes to employment, because many employers, let's just say, do not know what to do when there's a person with disability in their doorstep,
Right.
and applying for jobs. So in order to address that concern, so there will, surely there will be change management programs or diversity and inclusion programs, and this is something that they don't know or they haven't
Right.
experienced yet. So when you implement change, you need to make sure that
Right.
there is really a gradual or smooth transition, and you cannot say that when the policy is there, you can simply click and make the change.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
And I
not
think
the behavior of people.
absolutely. And Chrissy, I just remembered while you were saying that. So I think it's also important to draw comparisons, and I'm not about to suggest the Philippines should be doing this. I know it's very context specific, but let's say my very profession, which is a change professional.
Was it also
it's-
hard to implement change in Canada?
It is, but note that there are, the HR systems here in North America are a bit more mature. Feel free to comment below if you want.
I don't need to
you
comment.
wanna-
It's needless for comment because
But
surely it is more mature than HR
but
systems.
but that's my point. Is not to gloat. My point is, having change professionals specialized in this helps in the pivoting for businesses, because you have a point person or a secretariat that can advocate on behalf of the change happening. I mean, if change is involved in regular business, how much more now? And I think that's also why here in North America, the change market is very, it's exploding with activity because there's a lot of need for it. But the point that I'm trying to make is, in the Philippines, because a lot of us are generalists or we don't have a specialist on change, HR practitioners in general, which I'm assuming to be, most of the listeners, would need to wear an additional hat on top of their existing HR hat.
Yes,
is the point
exactly.
that I'm trying to make.
That's
at the
what's
end of the
happening
day,
now. Like
exactly. Yeah.
Like you have to wear different hats.
Exactly.
But your pay is only for a single role.
Right.
Sadly.
Right.
Sadly.
And as an HR professional, you know what they're saying in the airline industry. When the oxygen level drops, you're expected to take on the mask first before putting a mask on your child. It's the same principle with HR. You can't pour from an empty cup. If HR isn't being taken care of...
That's a very nice analogy.
Right? Who's going to take care of the rest of our employees when we're the ones expected? I think it's also being like fearless statement here, but I think employers are also sleeping on HR professionals. How much more? Of course, the frontliners, their work is very relevant, and we've documented time and time again their sacrifice and how important it is. But we need to also consider that HR professionals are also, part and parcel of the solution, or they could be the ones who can trigger that downward spiral if they're not taken care of themselves. And I'm seeing memes now. Not sure if you've seen them, Chrissy, but I've seen memes wherein an HR person is interviewing someone and the HR is like, oh, can I apply in another company? Like, it looks like your company's good. Like, even the recruiters
are also scouting opportunities.
Exactly. And I think that is, now that those memes are circulating not just in HR circles, I've seen that in HR Philippines, the Facebook group, but even outside of that, is very telling of where our HR professionals currently are at with their morale and with their mental health.
Yeah.
And let me just say how important it is to keep our HRs happy and engaged.
Also.
Exactly.
To be fair, when we talk about maturity of systems, to be fair, in the Philippines, I'm not saying, or we're not saying that the systems here are very immature. Probably it's not matured yet because not all of us are practicing OD yet.
Exactly. Even OD, right?
Yeah, even OD, or organizational development. Not much is practicing change management as a profession, as a career in the Philippines. And these two factors, or these two disciplines under HR, are the ones actually helping the organization implement change and implement smooth transition. So we don't have that yet in the Philippines, or not really, as in like we don't have it yet, but it's more of, it's less practiced and it's less known.
And you don't have specialists most of the time. You give it to your HR manager or generalist.
Who is also trying to cope up with the problems of the organization, the day-to-day operation. So you can't expect them to be really good at this, but you need to spare them understanding as well.
Absolutely.
They got so many on their plate. They can't move. They don't know where to start.
That's right.
Here are 5-10 employees telling him, "We want to resign the next week." or
I
after
know.
2 weeks.
I know. And what's HR, how can they? And sometimes it's not just HR. What can they do if,
Mhm.
they're not the ones who determine pay. They're not the only ones determining benefits. Ultimately, it's really up to the employer
Mhm.
to make these hard decisions to make sure that people get to stay. Because the decision will be made on their behalf if they don't make a decision. Because
Mhm.
employees will find, and there will be competitive organizations who will get,
The best
you
ones
know,
from you.
exactly. That's what we're trying to say. There will be organizations who are flexible, who are more inclusive, who are
Or
more
more
receptive to
relaxed.
change, who
Yeah.
have a more relaxed working environment. It's a cautionary tale. And this is already being seen here in North America. The IT and the tech industry really has seen a lot of shifts, but they're the ones leading the change because
Still.
they're very used to changes. So even people coming from industries such as tourism and hotel and restaurant, they're now
Mhm.
finding themselves in the IT industry because it's more flexible. And in terms of like mental health and wellness, they're more
Programs.
receptive
They've
to implementing those programs.
they
So
have
that's a
policies
cautionary
to
tale.
yeah, they have
Yeah,
policies to take care of their employees' mental
exactly.
well-being, and
Yep.
you know, and they have higher employee engagement if in in that scenario, because they got something to take care of the employees
Absolutely.
um, after work, or after call work, or
That's right.
um, after shift care, like
Yeah,
there
and
are
even
work
flexible work.
counselors. Yeah, flexible
Like,
work.
let me give an example. I know there are tech industries here in North America that are like output based, no work time required. You get paid based on outcomes based on a time period. Before they weren't like that, but now, and I'm not saying all work can be like this. I mean, if you're in retail, you can't say, okay, sell items whenever you feel like, unless it's online marketing. But let's say you have a brick and mortar facility, like you're selling stuff. You can't just say, oh, flexible time, come to the office whenever you want. We're not saying that, but we're
It's
saying
not
you need
applicable
to
to
make
all
the most.
industries.
Yes, but it's also about making the most out of it. So again, tech industries, financial industries can learn from tech industries. There are financial industries are struggling a bit because
Mm-hmm.
the mindset is a bit more rigid. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's because of the discipline, while tech industries, I'm not saying a lot or all, but there are tech industries who really rose to the occasion and got the best talent because they offered flexible benefits and better benefits, like to your point, counseling,
Yeah,
activities,
activities,
engagement,
engagement.
perks. Yeah,
Yeah, true. And
for sure.
even
Yeah,
here in the Philippines, the tech industries here are also rising very, very quickly,
right,
and they
right.
offer, of course, the best compensation and benefits. And
Yeah,
it's a big thing now to look after, or
right.
to check employers where they have existing mental health programs,
Mm-hmm.
because here in the Philippines, it's now a big thing where
Yeah.
employers should be also concerned about the mental health or
Oh, for
well-being
sure.
of an employee. No,
Yeah,
because years back, nobody likes or nobody talks about mental health programs in an organization. Even from the multinational, international
that's right.
BPO I worked for, we don't even
Yeah,
have a mental health or what's that, employee well-being programs there. We do
right,
have engagement programs for employees, but these are not geared towards um, employee well-being, or it's more of not related to mental health. It's more of
right.
just family day. I'm not saying it's not helpful,
Mm,
but
right.
there are certain things that has to be uh, curved into a more mental health programs rather
That's
than
right.
the general engagement program. So for our fellow HR
Yeah,
professionals out out there listening and doing employee engagement, I guess you should consider benefits and
yeah,
flexible work hours, or work from home option. I'm
yeah.
not sure if it's an option there in Canada, but here
Yeah,
It's still a divided trend. Not all of
work
them
from
want.
home.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And yeah, I think it's also very industry specific. On my end, ever since I
Mm-hmm.
started, I've always worked from home. And in fact, my program, while it's not just about working from home, has only enabled that more, allowing for flexible. So we call it flexible work, where you can work whenever and just provided that you're able to deliver the output. Going just very quickly circling back on the Philippine context, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
also very timely that we have people who lobbied in Congress before the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
the passing of the mental health law. I think it's very
Yes.
important to also consider the legal landscape, and that my point is for employers, there's no excuse not to
Not
have
to do.
awareness of this,
Yeah.
because this is already legally binding, that organizations should be ensuring that faculties that support mental health and wellness in organizations, so even the DOLE has implementing rules and regulations on this. So the point is, honestly, there really shouldn't be an excuse even in the
Mm-hmm.
Philippine context to
It's a policy driven change, and
exactly,
we're very very thankful to that policy, because
for
without
sure.
that there will be no force or push for employers to come up with mental health programs in their companies, etc.,
Yeah,
etc. So we're hoping for the same thing for other problems like inclusion.
yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
we're hoping for more inclusive policy, so that the diversity and inclusion we've been saying wouldn't be
Hmm.
just a fad and big words and
That's
nice
right.
nice words to listen to, that hey, we are a
Right.
diversity inclusion loving company. So
Yeah.
blah blah blah. It's it wouldn't be that anymore, but probably more organizations would consider doing that once there is a policy in place. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, a policy that would strengthen the 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 new perspectives when it comes to inclusion with inclusion of marginalized people in the
Yeah.
workplace.
Absolutely.
And since we've been talking about resignation, we're talking about
Yeah.
the how organizations would take care of their employees and lessen
Yeah.
the risk of attrition. I'd like to know, or I'd like to share with you also, how
Yeah.
to know when it's time to leave. Because
Yeah.
like what I said earlier, the title of this episode is asking yourself, do I love you
Yeah.
still? And we're referring it to the job that you do, or
Yeah.
the career that you have right now. So
Yeah.
first question that you need to ask is, number one, am I right in this role? Like, is this
Yeah.
role right for me?
Fair. Yeah.
That's the first question. Try to know if this is a good job for you to continue with, or is this the right role, or is this the role that you want to do for years?
Yeah.
Are you looking for better opportunities? Are you looking for promotion? Try to assess and try to check if this is what you feel towards your work or towards your role currently.
Yeah.
Second, the second thing that you need to ask, how's this organization I'm working for? Is this the organization that I like to work with? Is
Yeah.
it really the organization that I'm destined to work with? That sounds
Right.
like serendipity. um, but kidding aside, it's more of asking, is this organization the right organization for me? Or do I
Yeah.
feel that I really belong here? Try to ask yourself about that.
Yeah.
And number three, do I have a problem with my boss?
Hmm.
I guess a lot of
The hard question.
question. I guess a lot of our listeners can relate to that, because most of us have had once in our lives, or at least once, twice, thrice in our lives, experienced a difficult boss.
Oh, for sure. For
Okay,
sure. And it's very integral to, look into that.
and your boss is important to your growth. Your boss is important to your
Absolutely.
productivity. Your boss is important to how you perform every day. So this is a
Yeah.
very important question. So try to ask yourself these three questions and answer it with yes or no. Now, if your answer is no for all of, not for all of these, but even just one out of these three questions, then it's a sign that you have to leave.
Yeah.
But there's a big but there.
Mm,
But you don't have to but you don't have to do it like right away.
yeah.
You don't
Don't
have to be,
rage quit.
yeah. Mm-mm. don't don't do it very impulsively,
Yeah.
because you need to think first of all. um let's go to number three first. If your
Yeah.
boss is the problem, try to talk to your boss first about things that probably you can change, you can revise, way of doing things. It could be like that, or it could be about the process that you do things on a day-to-day basis. It
Yeah.
could be or just be honest. Like, sometimes I get um I get offended with your remarks. It's a try to explore that ground. Try to talk to your boss and try to explain things. What made it difficult or challenging for you to accomplish
Yeah.
something? Was it really him, or probably the process within the team? Whatever. So try to explore that area. Try to talk to the person. And if you think that there's nothing else you can do and it is really the boss, that is the problem. Not even your colleagues, not even the process of doing things, and then you can probably talk to your boss and discuss resignation. But you don't tell your boss that they are actually the problem, but you can frame it upon yourself that, I'm looking for career development, or I'm trying to find opportunities that I've been looking for ever since, something into that effect, because you don't want to burn bridges, because when you move
Yeah.
to another job, that's still the boss who would still provide um, not evaluation, but it's more on like like a comment or feedback to to your a possible new employer, right?
Yeah.
You
And
don't.
I think, oh, sorry. I also think, just to dovetail into that,
Mm-hmm.
culturally, I know it's a challenge. Us Filipinos, we really respect
Yeah.
hierarchy. It's our boss. So, and I even had to struggle with that. Um, I transitioned. I'm very used to that culture, transferring in North America, with the
Mm-hmm.
work context. But my best advice, and I actually got this
Mm-hmm.
from my mentor here,
Mm-hmm.
the advice that I got is frame the discussion. So number one, when you're talking to your boss, you believe you have a feeling, you have a hunch that they're the
Mm-hmm.
problem. Don't confront them or make them feel that they're being attacked. That's going to be especially in the Philippine context, that's going to be a surefire way to get them defensive, and they chances are they're
Definitely.
going to latch back on you, or lash out
Up
back
the
on
back
you.
on you, yes.
They will
Exactly.
be like, how dare you, I'm also struggling, etc., etc. So the way
Yeah.
you approach it, to your point, Chrissy, is make it developmental. Like, if this is how I'm seeing, is this something that we can work towards? Do not confront them about the destructive behavior. Tell them about your priorities and your boundaries. So instead of saying, I don't like the way you order me around, say something like, I'm more productive if it's a bit more consultative, or
If it's
um,
more
is it
collaborative.
possible for us to work on this and get a discussion? And I think if
Mm-hmm.
you do that, I think I'll be able to give you what you want. Notice what I did there. I
You have
instead
to
of
change the
attacking my
scripting.
boss, right? I made it such that I'm here to help you, but help me, because your boss might also just be struggling with deliverables themselves. Frame it in such a way that they understand what's also in it for them. Boss, I know you're having a hard time with this. I can help it. I can help you. But my request is, can we discuss and explain thoroughly so that I can,
It's more of positive
facilitate your
scripting.
request? Yeah.
Yeah. it's more changing the script. And I
Yeah.
agree with you that in the Philippines, it's going to be very hard or difficult because of power distance. Because in the
Yeah.
Philippines, we have this power distance, like it's really big. Like
Yeah.
we have high respects in authority, even if we see that they're doing things in the wrong way.
Yeah. But honestly, when it comes, like, I don't think your boss is going to want you to leave, because being hiring managers themselves, let's be very honest here, at the end of the day, you leaving does not help them anyway, especially in operations, because they're going to have to find a replacement. So you also need to come from a position of power. Know that when you're speaking to your boss, you're not there to out them or to argue with them. You're there to help them help you, so that all of you are happy, and understand that if you quit, they're not going to be equally happy.
Hmm. But we recognize that this wouldn't be that easy to
It's
really.
not going to be easy,
It's
but it
not gonna
has
be.
to be done
It
if
has
you
to be
want
done,
to
and
stay.
you have to try.
You
I
have to
mean,
try if
you
you
have to
think it's
try.
worth keeping.
Okay.
Because if you're already experiencing bullying, or you're having anxiety,
Work
I know some
anxiety.
friends who are like having work depression, it's not worth it. Cut loose, have a professional. Don't even give them an inch. Write their resignation letter, be professional, move
Mhm.
forward. If and only if your mental health and stability is already at
Affected or
risk.
impacted.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
that's your number three. So don't
Yep.
um don't impulsively leave the company. Just
Yeah.
try just try different options first, and if
Yep.
nothing else works, then that's the time that you leave. Because we're not advising it we're not advising you to leave like immediately without really exploring other options. So talk to your boss first. Number two,
Or
going back to number two,
yeah.
checking or assessing if this is the organization like you want to stay for years and years. Is this the right organization? Do you think you really belong here? Because Ellie, in
Hmm.
organizations are also part of our consideration.
Yeah.
We need to know if the environment, the working environment, is really making us feel valued,
Oh, for
appreciated,
sure.
and if we feel valued, motivated, and appreciated in that kind of working environment, and I guess
Yeah,
the end result is nothing but a very high productivity level.
exactly. So I think really with the organization, ask yourselves, this is not limited to millennials, but when you're,
For
in an
everyone.
organization, this is for everyone.
For
But,
everyone.
ask yourself, what are your values and does it align with the company? And if the company, declares values, if you're an HR professional, you've probably memorized it by now because you have the handbook,
Well, yeah.
you do the orientation. So I'm sure
Orientation.
you have it memorized. But you also need to see, is the organization as a whole, particularly its key officers,
Mhm.
are they consistent with the values
The
that are published?
company values, yeah.
Exactly. Because it's fun to say, have integrity, always put employees first. It's fun to put those on paper. I've done that myself. I've developed handbooks
We're an
for
equal opportunity
various clients.
employer.
Exactly. I'm equal opportunity as an organization. We're doing this. It's fun to write those. It's easy to write those. But my advice for professionals is, if that integrity of promise, there's an inconsistency and a glaring one at that, it's not worth it. Don't sweat, your talents and time are better suited or better
Spending
utilized
somewhere else. Spending with
somewhere
another
else,
spending
right?
and or being utilized by another organization feel
Absolutely.
where you feel more your value, you're more appreciated,
Exactly.
etc. So that's why
Exactly.
organization is something that you should put on your list whenever you're job hunting or you're looking
Yeah.
for another opportunity where you want to transfer,
Yeah.
because that's really important, because that's your work environment every day
Absolutely.
and for years
Absolutely.
possibly.
Yeah.
And number one, back to number one, role.
Yes.
How's your current
Yes.
role? Is this
Yeah.
the role that you want to do for many years, or you're sick and tired of doing the same thing over and over again, like for a year, and it's not
Right.
that you hate it, but it's more, are you looking for more challenging work? Are you looking
Right.
for something not really better than that, probably the more advanced type of job that's aligned to it. Like for example, if you're a recruitment associate for 3 years, 2 years, probably you
Yeah.
want to jump into recruitment specialist,
Yeah.
or to
Yeah.
a recruitment analyst, or to a recruitment manager sometime soon, something to that effect.
Exactly.
So try
Right.
to assess if you still want to continue this work, if you want this role, if you want to do the things that you do every day for more years. So,
Right. And to your point, Chrissy, like having that growth mindset is very important. Are you still being challenged? And on the flip side, though, given that it's the pandemic, and given that we've discussed that HR is one of those roles that are severely impacted, here's a buzzword that I'm going to qualify: scope creep. It used to be a
Mhm.
term limited to project management,
Mhm.
but when we say scope creep, HR is one of those roles, and that's why you need to think about your roles after the pandemic, because you need to
Mhm.
review, my role got scoped creep, meaning when the pandemic hit, was several things added to my job description that wasn't there when I signed up when I first got the job. Because I know for a fact that there are HR professionals, particularly generalists,
Mhm.
who now that there's a pandemic, they're being
They did
expected to do mental
everything.
health counseling. They're expected to do, relocation of their employees. They're expected to, research on market rates and pay. They're expected to be labor professionals to know the market rate, all that sort of stuff. You need to ask yourself, is this fair? Or am I just being maximized because I'm staying? So that's why it's such a
That's
good
over
advice to look at your role.
maximized.
Exactly. You're being stretched, you're being taken advantage of as an HR professional. If you have been scoped
Mhm.
creeped in terms of your role, have a thought. And if
And
you're, yeah,
mhm. And when you're over maximized, the
yeah,
tendency is you would have lapses at work.
exactly.
You will miss out details, or
Mm-hmm.
probably you would tend to forget something, forget to respond to an email. I mean, things like this, you're prone to commit lapses at work. and
Absolutely.
and a person who cares about their productivity, and a person who cares about their performance level, wouldn't want that to commit
Yeah,
lapses at work, especially those who
that's right.
always set the bar higher. No,
Exactly.
it's a no. That's why you need to be careful also in maximizing or over maximizing the person,
Yeah,
because remember, even if they are grateful and thankful that they are employed, and they still have jobs at this time of pandemic, you need
yeah.
to remember they are human beings. They're not machines. They are not
Yes.
even Google, who knows everything that you want them to do, like work
Yeah,
counseling. You need to
yeah,
get a professional in counseling, and you can't
exactly.
expect a generalist to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And again, that would lead to resignation.
Yes. Yes.
You
So
know,
yeah, I
we've
think
been
those
talking
things.
yeah, we've been talking about things that leads to resignation, but then again, it's there should be a collaborative effort between employee, employer, and organization. It's like tripartite.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
um it's like tripartism, where three factors or three entities should work together to make it happen, or to make sure that they can take care of one another.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Last
Agree.
thoughts, my friend,
Yeah. Yeah.
to fellow HR, and probably to employees thinking to
Yeah.
resign.
Yeah. So I think what I want to reinforce, and this is in the Philippine context because I'm still in touch with friends who are
With me.
hesitating, right? With our colleagues
Yeah,
where they're thinking,
our
well, it is the
classmates.
pandemic. I'll just sweat it out because It's there's nowhere for me to go. I need to stay with my work even though I'm burning out. This is my advice. It's not worth it. You deserve to grow, and just because of the pandemic hit doesn't mean your growth and your goal setting for your career should stop. You know, I'm not saying resign, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is don't feel like you are pigeonholed into committing to a work that you're no longer happy, if you are in fact no longer happy. There are plenty of opportunities out there. This is a time where organizations are actually tested for what they're claiming. Because those, again, the survivors that treated their employees with respect, dignity, and inclusivity, they are now more public. You can see them clearly. And those are the organizations that deserve your talent. Those that do not want to adjust and those that do not want to change, don't waste your talent on them, because pandemic or no, they're going to stay the same whether you're there or not. They're going to find someone else. Why? And you're going to get stunted in terms of your growth. Why settle when there's plenty of opportunities out there? You just need to have courage.
In times of crisis, this is where companies can show how truthful to their employees, or to the values they have published on handbooks, on website.
Yes.
It is you can test your employer or the organization in times of crisis. Attitudes and behaviors change when crisis is around, when problems are around. So they're just okay before pandemic, and now that we're facing a health crisis or a public emergency, this is where you'd see who'll stand by you and who still care about your health, your mental health, your productivity, your performance, etc. And
for sure.
And for those who have been watching different HR series in my channel, they know that I have this special, not really special, but I always emphasize inclusion of persons with disabilities. I have mentioned that multiple times because this is one of the work that we do under org development and change management, right? Where we try to integrate marginalized people or marginalized sectors in the workforce or in the labor force. And can you imagine how even difficult it is for persons with disabilities who've lost their jobs to look for another job, or probably shift to another industry, or do a different job from what they used to do?
That's right.
And then we're talking about resignation. How can they even lose a job when it's even the hardest thing for them to look for?
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like,
yes.
I know it's easy said and done, but maybe it's really time for all of us, like for the organizations and for us professionals, for doing OD change management, to consider also other sectors who are part of your current workforce. I'm not saying that you have to retain them if it's if it's not worth it to retain them, but try to be careful as well by doing things and by with the process and everything. That's what I'm trying to emphasize, that when we do changes in the organization, like what the pandemic has taught us or forced us to do, we need to make sure that no one's still left behind.
For sure. Absolutely.
With all the policies and process and any other change that you want to implement, we need to make sure.
And I mean, our, especially when we're pertaining to persons with disability, we did say when this pandemic started, it's such, the pandemic's such a great equalizer. Because now, before it's very easy to ignore marginalized sectors, but now we can see there are actually organizations that see their worth and their value. They actually have demonstrated that now. For example, this Zoom trend, qualified, it doesn't matter what your physical capability is if you are qualified and competent, you don't need to commute to work. You can perform. And I hope that organizations see that value and see that the pandemic is a time of opportunity in order to better integrate. There's absolutely zero excuse to involve and engage and maximize, the effort and the capability of more people, particularly persons with disability.
Exactly. But just to share a thought about the equalizer you've been saying,
Yeah.
while I agree that the pandemic has been one of the advantages of pandemic is the equalizing thing when it comes to work, because everybody can work from home, they can virtually work. There are still a lot of things that are not equal yet.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I
to
don't
person.
disagree at all.
Yeah, to persons with
Yep.
disabilities. But of course, that would be part of another episode, because that would require a longer time to discuss. But what I'd
Oh,
like
for
to
sure.
say is, it's we just need to exert effort in making sure that no one's left behind, especially in this trying
Yeah.
times of pandemic. So yeah, there. So anything else? Like last thoughts for our fellow HR?
Yeah, that's all good.
Hang on, guys. Hold on.
Yes, kapit lang, as they
Yes,
say.
as they say, kapit lang. That's true. That's true. So thank you so much for joining us today. And
Yeah, you are welcome.
would you like to greet someone, or would you like to say hi and hello to someone? It was very
Yeah.
Filipino, saying hi,
I
greeting
know.
someone on air.
Of course, everyone, sila mama, papa, my family members back in the Philippines, our friends, our colleagues, that we've worked with, sila Miss Da,
Our
sila Miss
classmates.
Vani, our classmates from Australia Awards.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ellie is also an
hopefully
Australia Award
soon.
scholar.
That's right.
Both of us
Hopefully
actually.
soon I can, return because the quarantine has already. So hopefully this year makakauwi.
Yay.
We'll see how that goes.
Mhm.
But looking forward to it.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching. This is HR series. See you guys again in the next episode. Bye. Bye.
Background shows a small group of people in a theater-like setting watching something, and a block of text in a pink box appears at the lower part, saying, "Thank you for watching." The next sequence shows two sets of hands scribbling on a flat white surface, and a block of text in the middle with the words, "See you on the next brown bag session." Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Audio description written and voiced by Ray Recran.